Hello, I'm Alice Harmon, and today is Thursday, August 21st, 1997. We're here in Cincinnati, Ohio, doing the Living Family album with Veronica Harmon, who is my mother-in-law. The news highlights for today are UPS's strike just ended. They handled 80% of the packaging system, which people were surprised about, but the post office covered quite well. Economy is booming due to low inflation and low unemployment. Stock market hit over 8,000 and set 34 all-time highs this year. The state-of-the-art computer today are Pentium 2s with 2 gigs, 200 megahertz with 33.6 modems, and are selling for around $1,300. Mortgage interest rates are at 7.5%. The world is relatively peaceful right now. The ongoing Middle East crisis is still defying all attempts at peace. Tiger Woods is the newest golf sensation and has won the U.S. Open and the Masters. Ronnie Harmon is a widow. Her husband, Bob, died on January 16, 1983. They had been married over 36 years. She has 6 children and 14 grandchildren. She is 5 foot 3 inches, weighs 134 pounds, has gray hair and blue eyes. We only have one microphone here today, so as with many things in life, Mom and I will be sharing. Mom, I'm so happy to be here today doing this interview with you.
I'm happy to have you.
Could you tell us your full name?
Veronica Mary Heslaw Harmon.
Veronica Mary Heslaw Harmon. Is there anything special or unusual about your name or the way you were named?
Well, no, I was named after my mother. And my mother's name was really Sarah Veronica, but she didn't like Sarah, so she took Veronica, and I didn't like Veronica. I'd rather have Sarah.
Okay, when and where were you born?
I was born in February 1923 in Youngstown, Ohio.
Do you have any brothers or sisters, and what are their names and ages?
Well, I have 4 brothers and 4 sisters.
Can you tell me the relationship in age, like
Well, my brother was a year older than me.
Which brother?
Tom,
Okay.
and then me, and then I had a little brother that died in between Elaine and me.
What was his name?
Joseph. And then there was Gil.
How many years younger was he than you?
Gil was 7.
Years younger? Okay.
And then there was Ed, who was 8 years younger. And then there was Dick, who's, I think, 12 or something like that. And then Dorothy, who was 11. No, she was 12 years younger than me. And then Pat, who was 13 younger than me. I was the oldest, really.
What were your parents' names and where were they born?
Mother was Sarah Veronica Corrigan. And she was born in Chicago, Illinois, although her mother and father had come from Scotland. And my dad was George William Heslaw, and he was born in Chicago, although his parents came from Germany.
And are they still living?
No, Grandpa died. Grandpa Heslaw died at 100.
No, I mean your parents.
Oh, my parents. No, my parents are not living.
When did your father pass away?
My dad died in April of 1966, and Mother died November 1965.
What were their occupations, your mom and dad?
Mother was a full-time mother and homemaker, and clown. And my dad worked in the legal department of the Baltimore and Ohio Railroad.
And you did know your grandparents?
I knew all my grandparents because I was the oldest, you know.
Well, tell us something about them.
Well, Grandma Corrigan was just the sweetest, loveliest lady, and she was quite a piano player. And Grandpa Corrigan, she used to call him her Johnny. Mm-hmm. And he was a conductor on the elevated, you know, the elevated in Chicago, they go around the city, yeah. And he was a conductor on there. And I remember when we used to visit them, we used to sit on the curb and wait for him to come home with his lunchbox, you know, and stuff. And then Grandma Heslaw was, I think she probably would have ended up the president of a company, really, because when she married Grandpa, he was a streetcar conductor. Mm-hmm. No, yeah, the conductor. And then she just decided one day, Billy, I think we could make more money if I buy this building next door and you go to barber school and you can have a barber shop in the front and I'll have a beauty shop in the back. Oh. And that's what she got.
They did it, huh?
Mm-hmm. But originally, my dad had bought the store that they had while he was a conductor. She had a little delicatessen, and he bought that for her. My dad did.
What can you tell us about your family further back than your grandparents?
I can't really say much about, except that on my mother's side, Grandpa Stewart, who came from Scotland, there was never anything about his wife, and I know he had a wife because it was my grandmother's mother, but we never got that far. My cousin did a study on her family on both sides, and of course we share one side, but she couldn't get anything either. And of course Grandpa Heslaw, he came over here when he was 9 years old.
Oh, really?
So he's supposed to have left sisters and brothers in Germany, but Margaret Mary, when she was in the service, you know, she looked for Heslaws, but she couldn't find them, and I couldn't imagine that everybody would change their spelling.
No. Mm-mm. What is your ethnic origin, and how has it affected your life?
Ethnic origin? Like?
Are you
German,
Irish
Scottish,
or German
Irish.
or Scottish or?
Well,
You're German, Irish.
I always thought I was mostly German because I had a German name, Heslaw. But then when I got married, it was like I was Irish. And I was a part of it. In fact, I didn't even want Father Langan to know my maiden name for fear he wouldn't like me anymore.
Was there any unusual events in your family history or famous persons that you could tell us about?
No, not that I know of, except that one time there was a guy who was going to Ireland. His name was Wrong Way Corrigan, and Dad used to say he was related to my mother, but that wasn't true.
Okay. Now I'd like you to think back to the earliest memory you have. Okay, how old are you and what's going on?
I'm 74.
No. at this earliest memory? Back at this earliest memory.
My earliest memory.
The very first thing you remember.
Well, it's kind of sad,
That's all
and
right.
I don't know if anybody would really believe me, but after Elaine was born and before Gil, Mom and Dad lost a baby that died after it was born. And I remember that my dad took us to the funeral home, and I still remember seeing that baby.
How old were you then?
Oh, I'd say I was two or three.
Really? What else do you remember before school age? What other memories do you have?
Happy memories of the summertime, because we always went to the lake and spent our summers up there.
Which lake did you go to?
Crystal Lake.
So, do you have any specific memories from that time? Real little?
Just it was a fun time, and it was festival time, and you were going where they loved you, and you know, kind of a fun thing.
Okay, tell us where you lived and what your house was like. What did it look like
In Youngstown,
when you were a little girl?
it was like a Tudor style. And it was a nice house, and it had,
Was it big? Was it small?
yeah, it was big.
Was it?
It was big because we had a smaller house, and then we bought this bigger. Dad bought this bigger one, but we didn't have that too long because we moved to Baltimore.
Okay. Did you go to school before elementary school?
No,
No? Okay. Where did you go to elementary school? And what year did you start?
I went to St. Edward's. Went to St. Edward's School, and I started, I graduated in 1937, and I didn't flunk, so I guess it would be, what, 8 from,
So,
I was born in 23,
1923.
30.
Okay. And I'd like you to think back now of an incident that happened in grade school. Can you remember anything specific, one specific incident in your grade school?
Yes, I could. Do you mean an incident like would involve the family and us, or do you mean an incident in a play, or I don't
Or
know.
in school, like were you in a play, or was there did you win a spelling bee, or was there something?
Oh yeah, I did.
Okay.
Now that you mention it,
Tell us about that.
I was the champion speller of the school.
You were? What grade were you in?
6th.
6th grade?
And then I went to the state, and then I went to Washington, and then I went down.
Great. How many were in the contest to start with? The whole school, and then it dwindled down, and you were the winner?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, well, the words weren't as hard as some of them are today.
How were your grades in grammar school?
Very good.
How did you spend your summers during those years?
Mostly going away to Chicago and Crystal Lake, or around the house and swimming. We had a pool for a time in our lives.
Did you have any pets when you were little?
No, my brother did, but they kept him away from me because I was always afraid of dogs
Oh, really?
and cats.
Okay. While you were growing up, did you have any sense of whether your family was rich or poor? And what would you say now about your family's economic circumstances when you were growing up?
Well, when I was growing up, I had a sense that my family was very comfortable. I don't know that we ever used the word rich but we always had what we wanted and what we needed and things like that. And then, yeah, is that what you
That's exactly what I meant. And were you happy as a young child?
Yes.
Okay. What would you say about your relationship with your parents?
I had a good relationship with my parents.
Did you?
Very good.
Can you tell us a little more about that? Close and loving and affectionate?
Well, I always was. See, my dad started to drink, and he didn't drink too good, you know, and there would be some arguments and things like that. So when I say I got along with my mother and my dad, because I would do anything to help mother, and I would do the same thing to help my dad.
That's neat. Okay, where and in what years did you go to high school? Where did you live during that period of your life?
I lived in Baltimore when I was in high school, and I went to Towson Camp. Well, first I went to Seton High School, but I didn't stay there because I was so lonesome and everything. It was so hard going into a school, you know, at the first, when you're a freshman. And so so then I was transferred to this other school, Towson Catholic, and my brother and I both went there. But my sister went there too.
Okay, Mom, now I want you to think back of an incident that happened in high school which you remember really well and share that with us.
I suppose the highlight of that would have been I crowned the Blessed Mother.
Oh, what grade were you in?
Senior.
Tell us about it that day.
Well, of course they had the procession, and
How were you chosen to be the one to do that?
I was the president of the sodality that year. It's really not that easy. I was really not the president. You couldn't be president unless you belonged to the church where our school was. But the girl that was president had crowned the Blessed Mother the year before, so she relinquished. That's when I read the, you know,
Bylaws or whatever.
and she relinquished it to me.
Oh, how nice. And what did you wear?
I wore a real pretty blue Georgette formal and a crown in my hair, and my little sisters were my little girls by my side, you know, and stuff. It was kind of a big deal, you know, back then anyway.
Sounds like a really nice event. How were your grades in high school, and did you graduate?
I graduated and my grades were fine. I was not the smartest. Oh, A's and B's, yeah.
Okay. What social groups did you belong to in high school? And what kind of kids did you associate with?
I associated with real nice kids. I would probably considered square. I don't think so. But What else did you ask me?
What groups did you belong to?
Well, see, there was a group, I can't remember the name of it now, that we'd see that the movies were good, you know, and I belonged to that, and then I represented my high school in the, what was that other group? I was a leader, or if not a leader, the other one that'll help.
Were you in music? Were you in the band or in any of those things?
I took music. I took music. I took piano for 12 years, and all through high school. And I was in recitals and all that in high school.
Who were your best friends in high school, and are you still in contact with any of them?
Yep. Charlotte Nolte was my best friend. And Mike Connor was a real good friend of mine. I still talk to them and write to them.
Really, that's great. Do you have a favorite sport? And were you on any teams yourself?
No, I was absolutely no good at sports. Roller skating, ice skating, I was good at that.
Okay, who was the first boy you ever seriously kissed? How old were you, and what were the circumstances?
Oh, I don't want my kids to know that.
Come on, Mom.
They'll be so surprised.
Why?
It was Bill Wiley,
This is somebody.
and I was 19. He's dead now.
But what was he? He went on to become what?
He worked for National Cash Register, but he married a very, very wealthy girl, so he...
Were you two on a date, or what were the circumstances?
Oh, we went together for about 6 years.
Oh, okay.
You're embarrassed about kissing him?
Well, we didn't do that at that time.
Did you attend your senior prom, and who was your date? And
I
what was it
had,
like? Tell us about your prom.
I attended my senior prom, and I went with the president of the class. And my mom and dad were chaperones, and it all worked out fine.
What was his name?
Bill Wright.
Okay.
Mr. Wright? You didn't marry Mr. Wright?
No, and I saw him at the class reunion, and he wasn't Mr. Wright.
If you could change one thing about your high school years, what would it be?
I would have been freer to do more things.
Okay.
I wanted to do a lot of things that other people did, and my mother would say that, you know, it wasn't right, or if you're going to be a lady, you don't do this, and she was kind of wrong.
What was going on in your family while you were in high school? At home.
I don't understand that.
What was going on in your family? What was going on with your parents and your sisters and brothers while you were in high school?
Well, they were all they were all in grammar school, and some of them in high school. And I did not come from a family that was real happy, parent-wise, you know. We always wished they would be.
What were your family vacations like now?
I used to just go to Crystal Lake
You were still
and
going to Crystal Lake.
have
Okay.
fun.
Okay. How would you sum up your childhood and adolescence?
I think normal. I think I had too many things to think about for a person my age, but, you know.
Basically happy.
Yeah, and I felt loved too.
Okay, I'd like to shift gears for a moment and ask you about World War I and the Great Depression of the 1930s. What impact, if any, did World War I have on your life or your family?
World War One. I didn't know about it.
So it didn't have
But
any...
my dad was in World War One, and they got married in 1919 after the war.
Did he talk about it?
He did talk about it.
He was a hero.
Yeah.
Well, talk about that for a minute. Tell us about Grandpa's war history.
He was, he went in, he lied about his age when he went in the service, and he was a buck private, of course. By the time the war was over, he was a sergeant major.
Wow.
And he got the Service Cross, or I forget what it was. I wish I had his medals because he wanted to be buried with them.
Oh.
But he saved, I don't know how many troops or horses from burning to death.
Oh, my.
And he was a real good soldier.
See the Rainbow Division?
Rainbow Division.
There's a movie about that.
Yeah. 42nd Rainbow Division. Glad you mentioned that. I forgot.
Well, it's important to us.
So, yeah, he was heroic and he had lots of medals, and that must have had a
Oh.
great impact on his life.
Well, when the war was over, my dad and mother both lived on the west side, and they were having the west side,
Oh.
Chicago, and they had different parades on the same. And my dad led the parade for the west side.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's pretty significant.
yeah. I think that's what impressed my mother so much. She married him.
Okay, what impact, if any, did the Depression have on your life or your family?
Well, it didn't have any drastic impact because, in fact, I think that, you know, my dad never was out of a job. And we lived in a steel town, Youngstown at that time.
Oh, you'd moved from...
See, all this is hearsay because I was only, 6 years old and 29, but my dad always had a job. We always had what we needed, and in those days you used to have a little grocery store at the corner, and they used to charge, you know, and my dad even took care of 2 families.
Oh, that's really neat.
So we were not, you know, rich or anything during the Depression, but I couldn't tell you a sad story because I'd have been lying.
Okay, Mom, let's get back to the subject of your education. Did you attend any college or vocational school after high school?
After high school, I went to Mercy Hospital to go to become a nurse. And I was only there a short while when my dad wanted me to come home because my mother came down with high blood pressure and there wasn't anyone to take care of the children.
Well,
And then he said I could go back later, but later it was like, oh, I'm a year behind now, you know.
But while you were there, did you like it and did you do well?
Yes, I liked it.
Can you think of any incident during that schooling which you remember well for the short time you were there?
Well, from the short time I was there, there were some things like emptying pans and, you know, and stuff like that that I used to think I really ought to think about this. You know?
Not too sure this is it
Yeah.
for me, huh?
And Ronnie always says I would have probably brought all my problems home if I stayed in nursing. I don't know.
Are you in contact with any of your friends from that time in your life?
I have one girlfriend I'm still,
Who's that?
Bonnie.
Bonnie, and you met her there, huh? What's her last name?
What's her last name? Betty Cagle. I was thinking of Bonnie and Betty Cagle, but I just sent her a Christmas card.
Who were you dating now, and what did you do on dates?
Well, see, you're talking now about the war. And
World War II.
Mhm.
Okay.
And I dated. Mostly when the boys came home on leave that I knew, because I didn't, you could get picked up anywhere, but I would never do that.
Well, who were some of the guys you dated?
Bill Brown, Jerry O'Meara, Tim Henry, Bill Wiley, they were all coming home.
And what did you do on dates then?
We used to go bowling or dancing, mostly dancing.
Did you love to dance?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Was it the big band music then?
Oh, yes.
Uh-huh.
Benny Goodman and Glenn Miller. And
Did you go out to eat before or after, or what? What was a typical date?
well, usually you stayed home for dinner, and then you went out afterwards. And my mother wasn't strict about what time I got home, so I don't know why she wasn't strict about that. She was strict about everything else.
I guess I asked you what impact World War II had on your life. Actually, we talked about your family's life, but it impacted
Well-
yours because all the guys were gone, huh?
Oh, it was awful.
Tell us about that.
Just plain terrible. You just didn't, you know, you were with girls all the time. And I played the piano at a USO, and I was invited out, you know, and stuff, and I went to a couple of dances, but it wasn't like your own guys, you know. And I thought it was very hard, and I've always been mad at the Japanese. Because I did. I thought it was very hard right when I'm 18 and they're gone.
Okay, tell us when you left home, under what circumstances, and where you went when you moved away from your home.
I was married.
Okay, so you left to get married, and
Mm-hmm.
how old were you?
23.
Okay, and where have you lived during your adult life?
I lived in Chicago. Middletown.
Ohio?
Cincinnati. That's it, isn't it?
Okay. Did you have any jobs after you graduated from school before you got married?
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
I
tell us
worked
about
for the B&O Railroad.
What'd you do for them?
I was a accounts receivable clerk.
Did you enjoy that work?
Yeah, I loved it. If my dad hadn't been transferred, I don't know, I would still be there. We'd all still be in Baltimore.
What about that work did you find most satisfying?
I like to do figures.
Did you like the math part of it?
And of course it wasn't, you know, we had adding machines and stuff like that. It wasn't like now, you know.
Okay. And besides winning that spelling bee, have you ever been prominent or famous or well known for anything?
I don't think so.
What about your piano playing?
Well, when I was married, you know, wherever we'd go, everybody'd say, "Oh, there's Ronnie. Maybe she'll play the piano." You know, to that extent. But other than that,
So you're kind of the life of the party, I bet.
some of Bob's cronies thought I was. They never paid me for all the piano playing I did for them in their party room.
Okay, the last time you voted in a presidential election, whom did you vote for and why?
Well, I hate to tell you this. The last time I voted was for Clinton, and I didn't know I shouldn't. I felt terrible. My kids were ready to shoot me.
What made you vote for him?
Well, it sounds so silly, but I didn't know who to vote for. And I liked Bush so much, and I liked her. And I thought, I bet they're tired of this anyway. They'll get along fine.
So you voted for him to give Bush a break?
No, I voted for Clinton so Barbara Bush could take her husband home. She loves him so much.
Are politics important to you?
Not anymore. It's too, I don't understand it anymore.
What was your husband's full name?
Robert John.
Okay, and how did you meet him?
I met him when I was 16 years old.
How?
I was at a girlfriend's house up at Crystal Lake, and I was playing the piano. And he came in and he thought that I was, he liked the piano. And so I played some more songs and he sang and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. So it was at the lake and at a party?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. What did you two do on your first date?
We went to a movie.
Do you remember which one?
He paid this guy. I had a date with Ed Garrity, and he paid Ed Garrity $5 if he'd let Bob take me out, because I was going back to Baltimore. And so he took me to the movies.
Wait now, he paid this guy to not show up?
No, just to
okay.
explain that, yeah.
Okay, so he took you to a movie. Do you remember what movie it was? No? Okay. What was your courtship like? Tell us about that.
Actually, it was very different. Too long distance.
Oh.
You know, it was during the war, and didn't get to see each other like you should, you know.
Not consistently.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So did you write a lot of letters? Did he call you on the phone? What was it like?
Oh yeah, he called a lot and he wrote a lot. He wrote a lot more than me. Mm-hmm. But because I didn't have anything, there wasn't much going on where I was living. But that's mostly how it was.
How long was it after you met before you got married?
7 years.
And how did that marriage end? When he passed away?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay. What would you say is the most important thing about choosing a husband?
The most important thing about choosing a husband. The best thing I think you can do about is don't pay any attention to how they look, because a good person inside is so much more important, you know, and they're much more compassionate, and, you know.
So finding a person that has a good heart is what's most important.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay, that sounds like good advice. In what ways has marriage turned out to be different than you expected it?
Well, it was different for me because I grew up being more like a caregiver type person, which I am. I definitely am. And I never minded doing more for someone than I got back. But when you're that type of person, you get taken advantage of. And that's why I think that you always want to look for someone that's more interested in you than in themselves. That's what I'd say.
Yeah. Okay, when were your children born and what are their names?
Well, my son Bob was born August 10th, 1947.
Okay.
My son Michael was born October 7th, 1949. My daughter Ronnie was born December 29th, 1950. My son Larry was born on my birthday, and
Which was February 10th, what year?
1953. And then John was born June 10th, 1950. Yeah, 1956. And then Margaret Mary was born December 31st, 1958.
Okay, I'd like you to think back to the to the day your first child was born and tell us what the experience was like.
Bob, he's been a pain in the butt ever since.
It was so exciting. I just couldn't believe that I was a mother. That word applied to me. And I kept saying, the girl in the other bed, "Is this your first baby?" She said, "Yes." I said, "Can you get used to that name, Mother?" She said, mine doesn't talk yet. I said, "I just keep thinking about, I'm a mother. This little guy is going to call me Mommy, you know." Oh, I thought it was so great. I couldn't believe it. Just loved it.
What are some special memories you have of raising your children?
Oh, man, I could write a lot about that. One thing that was funny was, you know, when we had Ronnie, Bob was hoping for a girl. And oh, he was just so excited when they told him he had a girl. So I'm telling the girl in the room with me, "Wait till you see my husband. He is so excited. He'll be up here in the morning, I tell you, bright and early." Well, the next day came and no Bob. He didn't show up till 5 minutes to 8.
At night?
Yes, and I was crying and I was so sad and embarrassed. I was everything. You know where he was?
Where?
Singing in every bar on Madison Street, "Daddy's Little Girl."
Oh.
That's a true story, believe me.
Do you have other memories about raising the kids?
Yeah.
Some of the things they did?
Michael ran away.
Yeah, I was thinking of Michael when he ran away from home.
How old was he?
8. But the
8 years.
How many peanut butter and jelly sandwiches did he pack?
oh, I did. I missed that. I missed the whole thing because he came home for lunch and he kept saying he wanted another sandwich and I'd fix it for him, but he was packing them away.
How many did you fix for him?
I don't know. But they skipped school in the afternoon, and he went with Stevie Wilcox, and they were going to go to China.
Oh.
And then Stevie wouldn't have to take piano lessons anymore. But they found it, and the whole town was out looking for him, because 3 weeks before, 3 little boys had been murdered in the woods near our home.
So how many hours was he gone?
Well, he was gone. I missed him at 4 o'clock when he never was home from school. But see, then when we got a hold of the teachers, he hadn't been in school in the afternoon. So he was gone from noon till they found him at 5 minutes to 11.
At night. Where'd they find him?
Sitting at some place where you get a cup of coffee. They were cold, and the man said, "Well, you boys are out kind of late, aren't you?" And he saw the uniform, you know. And he caught him off guard, and Stevie said that they went to Vine Infant School.
Mm-hmm.
So they got a hold of us, and that was it.
They jumped a train.
Oh,
Yeah.
Gosh. So he was in another town?
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh.
Well, in Chicago, you know, it's so big, but he was way, way north. They didn't know where they were. They didn't know where they were.
So did you have to go pick him up at the police station, or how did
Oh,
you actually
yeah.
get him back?
Yes.
Who went? You and your husband?
Yeah, and I was 6 months pregnant with Margaret Mary. And when I came home, I went up the stairs. We were all going to bed. Mother was out there. And we had a turn in our stairway, and I fell down the stairs and broke my arm.
Oh, no.
6 months pregnant.
Oh.
Uh-huh.
6 months pregnant.
And then I always was happy that we never had to pay the damages on the car that, what did you and Brian Berg, he was telling me something that's so funny about you guys.
We washed his dad's car with paint remover.
Yeah.
We didn't know. We thought we were polishing it.
Oh. So this was Larry and a friend of his.
Oh yeah, a good friend.
Uh-huh.
Parents were good friends of ours. But there's just so many things about kids.
What about Ronnie? Can you remember an incident of raising her? Something she did?
But she was kind of different. His sister said, "We're going to do it this way." Then you do it this way. You don't argue, you know. She was kind of easy to get along with, which she was with her brothers too. She would get to school, but she wouldn't ever shut up in class. Sister always used to say. She was pretty easy to raise.
Mm-hmm. What about Bob? Do you remember any incidents?
Bob was kind of more like, he was more a home person than he was out. You know, these guys that go out and kick the can and do those things and stuff. And not that he wouldn't once in a while, but he rather was sit in the house and watch television a while and stuff like that.
Not Bob.
He rode his bike a lot, didn't he? And go play.
Yeah, he rode his bike all over. But he had certain friends, and those were his friends.
Mm-hmm. Okay, what about Margaret Mary?
Well, she was our baby, and I guess we spoiled her some.
Yeah.
And of course, she wasn't in Chicago that long. See, she was only 5 when we moved to Middletown. So she has no memories of it. And at the back of the line, she always says, "I don't remember this, I don't remember that," you know.
Mm-hmm.
So she was a cutie.
And what about John?
John was just no problem, was he there? He absolutely, the worst thing that John did, he and his friend They were only, what, I think in first grade, if that. And they went over to the church and lit all the candles. That's the worst thing he ever did.
Prayed hard, huh?
We thought he was going to be a priest.
What about, because you're so musical, what about your kids? Were they in plays and did they sing and do things in school? And
They were all in plays and all danced and all sang. Michael wasn't too much for that, but these guys, Larry and Pop, were.
Okay, what is the best thing about children and what is the most frustrating thing?
The best thing, oh, I wish I'd known you were going to ask these questions. I could have thought about. The best thing about children, oh, to me, they're mine. That's the best thing about them.
Okay, and what's the most frustrating?
That they're mine.
I don't think children are frustrating.
Okay. What's it like to be a grandma?
Well, I haven't really been an active grandma since Sarah was a baby, really, you know. I've never babysat for so many of them because of my health. But it's a joy. And it's wonderful to see that they're your children having children, you know. Just like Kelly said it in her letter to me. My dad, Sean is with my dad, your son Larry, in Alaska.
Do you enjoy travel and where have you gone?
I don't enjoy travel anymore, but I used to enjoy going different places when I would be invited to go with my husband, you know.
Tell us some of them.
Oh, well, we went a lot of places. My very favorite trip was San Francisco.
Oh.
I love that. That was my favorite trip.
What'd you like about it? What'd you do there?
Just sightsee, and it was a vacation, I think.
Did you ride the trolley car?
Yes. We stayed at the top of that, we had a drink at the top of the, I forget the name of it now, that hotel that's at the very top where the streetcars come down.
Oh, okay. You've been on some cruises too, haven't you?
Been on one with Larry and Bob.
Where did what ship was it?
The Norway. That was really one of the neatest things that I really, because I was with my friend, Arlene went with me, a friend of mine from Chicago, who is a real traveler, you know. And when we got on the Norway, and we went to our room, she went, "Oh my God, Ronnie, are you sure this is for us?" It was so big and everything, and she's been on trip. And then our luggage was in the room, and she said, and of course it was my first cruise, but she said, oh, what a time we had.
Okay, Mom, what would you say has been your greatest adventure thus far?
My greatest adventure. Well, I don't know if it was the greatest, but the biggest adventure really was when we moved to Middletown, because I didn't
Know anyone?
no, know anyone, and it was a different kind of living, and you know, and things. So it was I think it was the biggest one, I would say.
What was it like for you? Was it like starting over, or what?
Mm-hmm. Starting over. The children adjusted, I thought, quite well.
What year was that?
1964.
And you moved from Chicago to Middletown. Well, tell us how that turned out. Were you happy there then, and did you make a lot of friends?
I made friends, and the children did, and Dad seemed happy for a while anyway.
Mm-hmm.
But it was an adventure. But I made some wonderful friends, and the children did too.
What are your interests and hobbies, and what do you like to do?
Well, I'm sorry to have to say that my interests and hobbies changed 2 years ago in Florida when I had my first stroke.
What were your interests before that?
It was like I was more interested in like knitting and I think I really am not. Yeah, I like to do things with my hands. I like to cook.
Okay.
And I even cooked for myself when I was left a widow. And I don't do that anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to try to get back to knitting.
Okay, what organizations do you belong to?
Not any right now. I used to belong to card clubs and things at church and things like that, but I haven't done anything anymore.
As of this point in time, has your life turned out as you imagined that it would?
No, not completely.
No? What has been your greatest accomplishment thus far?
Well, my greatest accomplishment was the fact that I was able to have 6 children.
Mm-hmm.
And when I look at each one of them, they're all different. Mm-hmm. And there's a love light in each of their eyes that only belongs to me.
Oh,
that's an accomplishment.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. What is the most important thing in your life right now?
Well, right now, with everything happening with my health, I think the most important thing,
mm-hmm.
is for me to be ready to meet my God.
Mm.
And I don't know how I'm going to get ready for that, but I'm going to figure a way out. And because, as some woman said to me one day, I don't know if I believe that I'll see my mother, I'll see my father, my husband, I don't know if I believe that. Mm-hmm. But I do believe that I'll see God.
Oh.
That's what
I'm sure you will.
I hope.
What would you have done differently in your life if you knew then everything you know now?
I would have waited. I wouldn't have been in such a hurry to maybe even, to get married. Maybe waited a little longer. I don't mean necessarily somebody else, but I would have been more mature, definitely more mature. And there were people. I had a girlfriend who got married at 19, and she was more mature than me when I think about it, you know. So it depends on your maturity, but I would have waited longer to get married. Maybe I would have waited longer to have a baby. Doubt that very much.
Okay. What are your goals right now, and what do you hope to accomplish next?
One of my goals are to keep myself well enough so that I'm ready to go when the time comes.
Okay. If you could do anything you wanted to do, what would you do?
If it can't be done.
Say you were totally healthy and you could do anything you wanted, what would you do?
Get in the car and drive up to Barb's.
Where's Barb live?
She's in heaven.
Oh. Oh.
Barb died last year.
Oh.
Barbara Hayes,
Yeah.
another girlfriend from Crystal Lake.
What do you think will be the major world events in the next 10 years?
You know, I don't really know because I don't keep up. The only thing I like to watch is swimming and,
Olympics?
yeah, something like that. But even the Olympics, I don't know all about those sports. I like to watch football or something, but I'm not any kind of a judge.
So you don't have any predictions for us?
Mm-mm.
Okay. What are the most important things you have learned about life thus far?
The most important thing I've learned about life so far. Well, one thing, there are a lot more wonderful people in life than we're given credit for. And I think that a lot of the good that you do for others keeps coming back to you. That I have seen many times.
That is. What's your philosophy of life? Like
I
do
guess
unto others?
do unto others as you would have them do unto you.
Okay. What role does religion play in your life?
Very important.
What is
Yeah.
your religion?
Catholic.
Okay.
But I also have gone to different churches with different people, a friend of mine, and with my son John, and I can get something out of their churches too, which makes me think that it's perfectly all right, and there is one God.
Okay. How about morality today, or faithfulness?
Well, I don't know. The only thing I know about morality today is what I hear on television and read in the papers. And I just think I'm so fortunate that I didn't have to raise children today, because I don't think I could do it.
It's a different world today.
Because my children listen to me, and I don't. Even though Michael ran away, that was the worst thing he ever did.
Okay, Ronnie Harmon, Mom. We are nearing the end of the interview. The next part is about the advice you have for the future generations of your family. First, what advice do you have for your great-grandchildren in the area of getting an education?
Start when they get out of the crib. Yeah.
Start learning right away. Huh?
Right away.
Should they go to college?
Absolutely.
Okay. How about choosing and managing their careers?
For them to do that, I think it would do them a world of good.
But do you have any advice on how to choose their careers?
Well, if they pray hard enough, the Lord will help them decide what they should be.
What advice do you have about money?
Definitely put it in the hands of somebody that knows more than you.
Okay, what about love and marriage?
It'll always go on. It'll always go on. I hope that nothing ever changes that.
Okay. How should they raise their children?
Well, I always think if you're there for your children, you won't have to worry too much about them getting off the track, you know? So, you know, if you're there to give them advice when they need it, that's what I do. That's what I would hope.
So be there for them. Okay, Mom, probably all of the future generations of our family will watch this tape. Since you have the opportunity right now, what personal message would you like to give them?
Oh boy. Well, stay close to God. Love your parents with all your heart. And if something in their life that doesn't work out, just turn to God for help. And there's always somebody there that will help you in any situation. By that time, there might be more people.
Okay, Mom, we are at the end of the interview. Is there anything you would like to add or say to complete things? Just take as much time as you want.
Oh gosh, I don't know what else to say. Did I say more?
Just one last thought you'd like to add?
Well, I love Larry for thinking of doing this and keeping me alive a couple of more years. And you too, Alice. You've been such a wonderful daughter-in-law.
Oh, thanks, Mom. I love you too.
So thanks, guys. And all you future little grandchildren, I can't imagine.
You love them too, I'm sure.
I would love them.